Okay, so in the electronic handouts, towards I think like the second to the last page, maybe third to the last page, you'll see this little worksheet. Now, it's to work through this personal purpose exercise to kind of pick up off the inspiration of Chadwick Boseman. And but I do have the instructions, and if you don't have the template, it's not a big deal. The only thing I would ask is then if you have a piece of paper. If you have it, I know those little totes had pads in them. If you have that, I'm going to ask you to pull it out. And we're just going to walk through this. And basically, I'm just going to get you started, okay? Get you started on developing a personal purpose statement. This is an exercise that I think is really, really helpful to get clarity. Myself on my own journey in this work, it's so easy to get splattered. And so really kind of sifting through those things that are passionate, those things that you don't like, those things that get you all jazzed up, and really then coming up with your personal purpose statement, I found really helpful. So I thought that this might be a cool exercise for you guys as well. Many of you may already say, nope, meh, got it, and that's awesome. But let's just kind of walk through the exercise. Then we'll go into the core measures. I'll explain to you what it is to be a trauma-informed professional. We'll play with the Legos, and then we'll get the heck out of here. Does that sound good? All right, having fun, of course, the whole entire time. And for the folks that are on Zoom, just pull out a piece of paper, and I'll give you the instructions to move through this activity. And it looks like I might want to, shut the video off, but I'm not going to touch anything because it seems like everything's working good. So the first two steps, in general, you might, after you start drafting this out, you might want to like bounce it off somebody who knows you. Whether it's a significant other, a colleague, or something like that, just to kind of get you grounded in where you're going with this, because sometimes it's hard to see what your blind spots are. That's why they're called blind spots. So, but let's just start. This is, just a draft for you guys, and then I'm going to invite you to just continue to flesh it out. It's almost like creating like that roadmap to help you find and get centered on what's your purpose? Why are you here on the planet? I mean, obviously, you're here on the planet to be speech-language pathologist, to be audiologist, to be a nurse, to do that work. But that's your vehicle to do your purpose. Does that make sense? It's kind of like what I had said at the way beginning. I think I said this, but oftentimes, people say, I'm a nurse, right? Did I say this already at the beginning? Let me just do it again, okay? I'm old, and I'll just repeat it, okay? So oftentimes, I'll say something like, I am a nurse. But I'm not a nurse. And I do nursing. Nursing is my job. I am much bigger than a nurse, just like you guys, right? You might say, I'm a speech-language pathologist. And I know that's how we use the language. That's how we speak English in America, probably in the UK too. But I want you to be conscious of the words and the power of those words. I am is a wicked, powerful phrase. I am a super passionate, obsessed person about trauma-informed care. That's who I am. I do that. I don't do that. Well, you're going to laugh at me when I say this, but I be that. Like that's, I do that work through my nursing vehicle, right? So does that make sense? So when you say I am, think about who are you? It's not your label. It's not your profession. I am my purpose, and I achieve my purpose through being a nurse, being a mother, being a friend, being a colleague. I have all these different avenues that help me be my purpose. You all good with this? Not too metaphysical for you? It's okay. So just start jotting down, all right? What are you passionate about? Answer this question. When did you feel the most excited in your life? Now we're going to, maybe it's not, but generally I think about this through a professional lens, but maybe not necessarily. What lights you up? Write everything that comes to mind. Just like, what you call it, free association. Just write down all the things that bubble up when I ask you this question. When did you feel the most excited? And then I want you to make a little notation. This is your homework assignment. Reflect on why. Why did that stuff, why did those things, why did those events make you feel so excited? And if you take this activity a step further and you're looking for the validation, maybe ask your best friend or ask your husband or ask, somebody who, knows you, when did you see me the most excited? That just kind of helps you get around that blind spot idea. And as you start kind of fleshing that idea out, on the next line or the next section of your note paper, I want you to write down what brings you down. By answering the question, when did you feel most frustrated? What's the stuff that makes you cuckoo house? Focus on those things that kind of deflate your passion versus, inflate your passion. And just like before, just, write down, like stream of consciousness, what comes to mind. Because the answer will be in there. There are 2 more questions that you're gonna journal on. The third question is, who do you care about? List all the people that are important in your life. And the instructions really challenge you to go beyond the usual friends and family. Think about like the impact of your work, your hobbies or activities. Who gets impacted by you? Are there groups or communities or sectors in society that really matter to you? And then the last question, what impact do you want to create? And you can look at it like for each of the people or the groups that you identified, what impact have you created? How do you touch other people's lives? How will you help others live a better life? Think grand, think big. And but also think of like, what is your heart telling you, right? This is personal. I'm not going to ask you what you've written down there. This is really like a working sheet for you guys to really help guide you. Not everybody has to save the planet. If that's what you're called to do, absolutely write that down. But maybe you're called to, mentor people. Maybe education is your path. Maybe, volunteering. I really like to help people who aren't able to help themselves. It's something like, something that resonates with you, that really lights your heart on fire. And maybe you got a peek into that, just over the past year in the pandemic. Maybe there were different things and service things, right, that brought you joy. The exercise is really just about kind of getting clarity. around how you get to be who you're called to be, who you actually chose to be in this life. Through the vehicle of your profession, you can do that. And it doesn't even have to be related to your profession, right? There's so much stuff I've learned about human beings as being a nurse that doesn't require me to do nursing activities. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll bet you there's so many cool things that you've learned around communication and the other, rich things that you've learned as a speech pathologist that can serve the community. So just kind of think about that. And as you're spilling your brain and your guts onto that piece of paper, the answer to the question about what your life purpose is in there somewhere. The instructions say, review all the previous steps, especially the impact portion. And what do you see? Do you see some themes emerging in the things that light you up and the things that piss you off? Do you see, are you starting to see some clarity of where do I fit? The people that you serve and the impact that you want to create also helps build that clarification. And so when you finish the exercise and when you check out the template, the little exercise sheet that's in your handout that y'all should have electronically, you'll see that they're asking you to craft the statement in this way. I want to insert intended impact for insert specific audience through how or what will you do. That's your, and it kind of becomes like a vision statement, or mission statement, but we call it a purpose statement. And it can change, okay? So that's the other piece of this. You're always gaining clarity. Like our friend over here, was talking about, metabolizing her trauma, that just when she kind of, goes one level, something else is revealed. It's the same thing, right? In your purpose. I knew that I was called to this work. I had no idea. Back in 2013 is when I was introduced to this concept. At the county hospital in Dorchester, my little neighborhood. I was working at the hospital, and I got introduced to this concept. And it lit me on fire. I knew I was supposed to do something with it. Had no idea. Really hadn't figured it out, but just knew. And so it's a place to start, really kind of uncovering. Because all of you guys, and I mean, everybody on the planet, but all of you guys that are here, that we're called to be here today, you're beacons of light. You really are. In the lives of those people that you serve, you are absolutely beacons of light. To me, in my, mission, you're beacons of light. You're ambassadors of this mission, of helping others understand the impact of trauma, which if you were to, and I said this to the group this morning, but it really is resonating more and more, what we're really talking about is love, right? Authentic love, patience, compassion, love of another person, being open and just accepting. That's what it is to be trauma-informed. Understand that everybody has a story. Brene Brown says this thing, and of course, I love her, and I know you guys do too. How does she say it? That it helps her to go through life with the understanding that anybody is doing their absolute best in any given situation. And when I first heard her say that, it was like, wow, what a cool way of looking at the world that frees me up from all the judgment and the pissed offedness and frustration, right? That we can just kind of hunker on ourselves because the whole world is not following my rules. They don't even know the rule book. They don't even know there is a rule book. And so it gives me permission to really throw out my rule book and just let people be who they are. And show up lovingly and gracious in that moment, understanding that. And that's what I think this exercise will help you do. It reminds you, it brings you back to your core, why you're here. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room wants to make a difference, right? You want to leave a legacy. You touch lives, you impact lifetimes. That was the title of my talk this morning. And I actually stole that title from a group of clinicians that I got to work with in Atlanta, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. They hired me for 3 years, and I got to fly back and forth. It was wicked cool. But for 3 years, I got to work with the NICU to adopt the core measures for developmental care, which are the standards of the National Association of Neonatal Nurses for developmental care. And part of the work, when you're working with any group who's committed to that level of cultural transformation, one of the first steps you do is you have them create a vision statement. And so they did all the work around doing a vision statement. And what they came up with was touch a life, impact a lifetime. There's so much power, right, in that concept. That's what the Play-Doh activity was this morning. Sorry for you guys that didn't have the Play-Doh, but I do have extra Play-Doh if you'd like some. So it's important for us to just stay grounded and connected to that, okay? And you can reach out to me anytime, all right, you have any questions. But the way I set up this activity was, I wanted to have you guys kind of dive in, because I was also, surfing around and trying to get my bearings on, why are we not advancing? Well, what's the vision statement of MSHA? And that might be a place, to kind of like pivot, so where do I fit in relation to this vision statement? This was the vision statement I found off the web. Making effective communication a human right, accessible and achievable for all. What a beautiful, profound vision. That communication is a human right. Right? I mean, think about the power of communication. That's the power of telling your story, of sharing your thoughts, making yourself, a verbal or vocal, making a contribution. And sometimes it might not always be verbal, but having the skills to translate your thoughts into words is really powerful and transformational. And so not to be daunted by that vision statement, but where's your purpose fit in there? And it doesn't have to necessarily align, but I just thought that might be a helpful way of kind of giving you a boost onto where to go with your position statement in the work that you're doing and then the work that you are yet to do. And so crafting the story, for me, at least in the work that I've been doing, it's been really helpful for me to create a framework so that instead of just kind of like, vomiting all of this stuff about trauma-informed care and it feels like really big and overwhelming and stuff like that, and yeah, I get it, but how do I operationalize it, right? That's a really important piece of delivering and operationalizing your mission, operationalizing and delivering your purpose. And so what we've done, what my team has done, is kind of looked at and combining the work of the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, who's really kind of the foundress, if you will, of this idea of trauma-informed care, and have identified principles and values, which I'll share with you shortly, and then integrating that with these core measures, which I will share with you shortly. These core measures are evidence-based best practices designed to be developmentally supportive. And originally, the first iteration of these core measures were published in 2009. Then they've been upgraded, pretty much every other year, because evidence always changes, and that's the other piece of the work, is not to get anchored into something. This is how we've been doing it for 30 years, and this is the way we do it. That's a very common thing that you'll hear in inpatient NICU care, and I don't know if that's something that you hear in the outpatient world. This is how we do it at this clinic. Fall in line, this is what we do. Or not. I mean, hopefully there's some more latitude, but people find comfort in the consistency, but the consistency can also not be the vehicle to the highest caliber of service that you can provide, right? Change is life, change is nature, and we must change with it. And so what we've decided to put forth is this idea that becoming trauma-informed invites us to rediscover our story. All of the life events and lived experiences as a foundation for our capacity to authentically connect and be compassionate with others. It begins with us. It's informed by the science, absolutely, but it begins with ourselves. And so these principles, and we touched upon this morning, these are they're very genetic, but they're very important, and they're cornerstones for how you provide care, how you interact with individuals. Safety first, right? It has to be safe, not only from a technical component, but from a psycho-socio-emotional perspective. You want to make sure that what you're providing is safe for the individual, and certainly it should be safe for you, but others should also feel safe. And I say this because I remember, again, when I first discovered this concept, which was already in play for like over 40 years, and I discovered it, because it was, to me, it felt like it was the best kept secret in behavioral health, this idea of trauma-informed care. But when I first discovered it, it was within the context of being an interim nurse manager on an inpatient adolescent psych unit. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys. I did to the morning group. I'm a neonatal nurse practitioner. I don't have any psych experience. How I landed that job was I was in a grown-up hospital, and they don't know anything about pediatrics. And they said that they thought I did. Now, I'm a NICU nurse. We don't know pediatrics, okay? We know NICU, but we don't know pediatrics. But at any rate, it was definitely a place that I was supposed to go, and I was mentored by amazing clinicians who helped me understand this idea of trauma, because I was bearing witness to these adolescents aged 12 to 18 who had the most traumatic early life experiences. I mean, these were children that were hospitalized. It's probably important to understand, and I don't know if you already know this, but in order to get yourself admitted into a locked inpatient psychiatric unit, you have to have either tried to hurt yourself in very meaningful ways or have tried to hurt somebody else. That's how you get admitted into a locked psych unit. So these children had tried to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. And it was absolutely tragic, I mean, on so many different levels with my own story, right? I mean, I'm the mother of 6 children, and these people were the ages, that my children had been. So it was really hard to understand that. But, as I got indoctrinated into this paradigm and really started to see the relevance of it and talking about safety and looking what was going down in the environment, but understanding what safety was, kind of pivoting off of the story that I shared with you earlier from our colleague here, talked about the little 4-year-old who was strapped down for the ear cleaning. These children, when they acted out, they would get restrained. They would get tied down, locked with handcuffs, restraints, like leather restraints. I don't know if anyone's ever been in that environment, but it's very frightening for these young children to experience. So you start thinking, well, what is safe about that? And the focus was the safety of the clinicians. I'm absolutely not saying that that's not important. But it's not all about us. And our safety can't be mutually exclusive to the safety of other. Just like this little 4-year-old, right? I don't know that it was safety, but it was efficiency that was certainly driving that intervention. And I think that also undercuts a lot of the interventions that we offer our patients that may not really be resonant with this concept of safety. And choice, right? Where's the opportunity to have choice for the patient, obviously for ourselves as well, but mostly the patient. This is a service industry. Service means other-oriented. So, and then collaboration, how do we partner together? And when we do that right, we empower the other person and we create that trustworthiness. So this is a cornerstone for this idea of a trauma-informed paradigm. Oh, I don't know. I think I was trying to be fancy there. And then the backdrop, so we've got these fundamental principles superimposed with these core measures. And so I'll give you a little backstory. Let me check my time. A little backstory on the core measures. So and again, this is a NICU story, but I want you to challenge me to adapt it for, resonance with the work that you do. So the first paper came out in 2009. I had the privilege of working with some amazing, amazing clinicians. Dr. Sharon Gibbons, she's a PhD NNP out of Sick Kids in Toronto, Canada, a NICU up there. And the late Dr. Stephen Hoth, neonatologist out of Cincinnati Children's Hospital. We were sick developmental care nerds, okay? We just, really passionate about developmentally supportive care, which is meeting the disease-independent needs of the hospitalized baby, right? It's talking about posture and alignment and eating experiences and the environment and managing pain and stress. You can see them there, protecting their sleep. It had nothing to do with what your diagnosis was. These were your core human needs. And people had been beating the drum about developmental care since 1982. So that's a long time. And we wrote this paper in 2008, got published in 2009, and people still thought it was fluff because they were too busy saving lives. We're saving lives. We can't be nice and save a life, apparently. And so we were really fed up with this. And so what we decided to do is we'd spin how we were going to present this idea of developmental care using the Joint Commission's paradigm. So in the Joint Commission, they use this idea of core measures, mostly for adult illnesses, where what they do is they survey the literature and they find evidence-based best practices that reduce mortality. So for grown-ups, it's mostly like, what are the ones? It's heart failure, ischemic heart disease, right? Stroke, I think, community-acquired pneumonia. Now they've got a whole ton of them, Probably COVID will be on there pretty soon, right? That'll be a core measure for COVID. But they're basically evidence-based practices that if you implement these, they will reduce the incidence of death. Pretty good idea, right? So we thought, well, what if we, instead of just having this like smattering smorgasbord of developmentally supportive practices, we do our due diligence, survey the literature, and identify what are those practices that have really kind of, shown, that they really are effective through evidence. There's different levels of evidence for sure, but we identified best practices. But as, you kind of had to build on this because there was a ton of research. So we looked at themes around infant care, because that's what we were really focused on. But what we've discovered is they actually are human care, but which is super cool. But anyways, we were first looking at babies. And these were the themes that came out of the literature. The environment, how the environment impacts health, how sleep is wicked important, pain and stress is always a challenge, ADLs, activities of daily living. Do you guys use that term too? Okay, cool. I thought it was a weird nursing term, but psyched. Okay, so ADLs, which was posture, eating, and hygiene. And then that green bubble there that says compassionate collaborative relationships, it used to read family-centered care. That's what it used to be. So we did that. We found the evidence, and what we did was because we were so crazy, and we thought we need to make sure that when we walk into a NICU, we know it's happening or not. Because now, then, you'd walk into the NICU and everybody would say, oh yeah, we do developmental care, and you'd be looking around going, where? Because you couldn't see it because everyone had their own definition of what it was. So we wanted no part of that. So for each of those colored blocks, we would have 3 attributes. And then for each attribute, we would have 3 criteria. We were crazy. We were like, we mean business here. We're going to be able to see it, breathe it, smell it. We've lightened up a little bit. But those are the core measures. And what has really been amazing is the opportunity to review and revise. So the first paper came out in 2009, and it was pretty a unique approach to developmental care. Nobody did core measures, so that was cool. In 2011, the National Association of Neonatal Nurses says, we kind of like that. Would you adapt that paper so that they can become the national guidelines for care? I was like, are you kidding me? I called my mother up immediately. Yes, listen to this. This is what's going down. It was so wicked awesome. But we also realized We put that paper out in 2009. We probably should check the research again. Make sure the themes are still emerging and make sure we update the practices. And so that's become a routine. So 2011, then 2014, this is really crazy, but I was on my bandwagon because I had just got off of my job of 2013 in the adolescent psych unit, and I was nuts about telling the world about trauma-informed care and its relevance for the NICU, so I was blogging. I mean, I'd never blogged in my life, but it was like I was on fire. I had to get the word out. Springer Publishing Company calls me. Have you ever thought about writing a book? No, never thought about writing a book. We think that this work is really important. So we will help you write a book. I'm like, okay. So we write a book. So we need to update these again, right? We need to make sure that they're real. So you can see this idea of change, that nothing, no evidence practice should be anchored at one moment. We already know that we struggle. I was telling the gal earlier, did you know that there's a 17-year gap between research that is discovered right now and the time that it will be actually mainstream bedside practice? 17 years. It's already antiquated. It's already obsolete. Isn't that crazy? So that was the other part of the mission, is like we can't do that. But I also realized that bedside clinicians are wicked busy, right? I mean, you're doing the work, you're in the throes of it, you're on that cutting edge of humanity, and you might have a life. And most people that have a life aren't going to do lit searches in their off-duty time. No, and there's no judgment there. So we need these folks that are curating the research, sharing it, and getting it out to the people. So that was the 2014. Then we updated them again in 2016 and when we published the guidelines. And then 2021, the second edition of the first book. And this was the big aha moment to realize that these core measures, I want you to look at them if you can see them okay. Do they resonate with you? Are you impacted by sleep? Are you impacted by pain? So the second edition was taking the core measures and absolutely figuring out their application for the baby, which was the reason why they were developed. But what we discovered is they also have relevance for the family. Again, I'm thinking within a NICU context, and I'm looking at postpartum women who have probably C-section or having pain. What's their story? Postpartum depression, fathers in the throes of crisis, how is that affecting all of these things? Because these are like core function. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These are human core things that if these things get deranged, we turn into crazy people, right? Sleep deprivation, chronic pain, how it changes and erodes the person that we are. Even, activities of daily living. Our posture, and actually we've updated that. We now have, it's called posture and play. And again, my NICU colleagues are looking at me like, what is up with you? Who's playing in the NICU? Actually, the babies need to play in the NICU, but what does a baby's play look like? Loving on their mom, loving on their dad. Play for a baby is being held, being sung to, having a story told to them. What's play for me? Play for me is going out for a walk, going for a bike. Fills my cup up. I can't give what I don't have. And so we really got to blow the lid off these core measures and presented them now for the baby, for the family, and for the clinician, which was a mind-blowing experience because I'm not a grown-up nurse. But do you know how much literature is out there about how these things are deranged for adult healthcare professionals? The majority of us, particularly shift workers, do not get enough sleep. And did you know that sleep deprivation is linked to a shorter lifespan, linked to cancer, linked to cardiovascular disease? Huge, huge issues. I had no idea how many people suffer from chronic pain. No idea. How the environment, the hospital environment is one thing, right? And if you work in an inpatient setting, the lights, the noises, the hustle and bustle, it resonates. It's like a din in your head. And oftentimes, the drive home, hopefully you're de-stressing, but a lot of times we don't. We just get so used to it. We actually are creating that chronic stress, that toxic stress that I talked about this morning within our own physiology. So it has relevance across all patient populations. So I kind of actually did all of this, so I won't belabor this, but as I had mentioned on the first go-round, in the original paper, we had 3 attributes for each core measure and then 3 criteria. We decided to throw that one out the window because that was just crazy. But for this one, what we did is we stayed with the 3 attributes. So components, for example, of a healing environment, and these are all in your slides, so I won't make it too nutso for you guys. But it's the physical environment, right? Light, space, sound, smells. The human environment, how well we work together. And then the organizational environment. How does the organization support you in doing the good work that you're here to do? And in many situations, in fact, I think the existing paradigm in America, I might be stepping on a soapbox in a second here, but it's got it all backwards, right? We're so caught up from an industry perspective on keeping the CEOs and the C-suite folks well paid and tucked in and comfy, while the front line is dying, literally. And we've seen this in the wake of COVID. That is not a trauma-informed organization. That is an upside-down organization. And what ends up happening is, as you all know, that front line at the raw edge of humanity is the one that's taking all of the hits, but has all, maybe not all, but a lot of the answers, a lot of the strategies, a lot of the solutions that could really turn things around. So it's, really shifting. So the work that I'm inviting you to do, the movement that I'm inviting you to join, there's a lot of hard work to be done. But it can't be done by one. It takes a village. And it begins with us really understanding our own personal story. What's my own experience with healthcare? It's not fun. I don't have a fun story to tell you about my experiences with healthcare. There are moments, absolutely moments, where I felt seen, I felt respected. But those were fleeting. And they shouldn't be fleeting. Because when people are in a healthcare situation, they are at their most vulnerable. They are at their frailest. And we have to respect and honor that. And we need to create a system that will allow us to do that. Protecting sleep. And this is across the gamut, right? This is for babies, young children, adolescents, grown-ups, everybody sitting in this room. Protecting the rhythmicity of sleep. And I don't know if you guys knew this. I didn't know this until I discovered it, like last year, that the American Nurses Association and the Joint Commission actually has recommendations for napping for for shift workers, because there's such a threat to safety on all fronts. Safety in delivering care, safety for yourself, driving home. And we know this, and we know there's a simple solution, but we've got these really weird taboos. You can't sleep on the job. I'll give up my supper break. Let me go take a power nap and just refresh. Because it's against our nature. It's against our biology. We are not nocturnal creatures. So there's a price to be paid. So, and these might sound simple, but they're important. And supporting them is being trauma-informed, because I know what the consequences are. Strategies that support sleep for infants, families, and clinicians. Creating sleep hygiene routines. Making sure that you really do. And I know that it's hard, and I know people think it's a badge of honor. I only need 5 hours of sleep. Okay, enjoy that incredibly short life that you will have, because you're digging yourself a fast one. It's the truth, and I'm not making this up. There's evidence to support this. You think that you can, but what happens is you accrue a sleep debt. You accrue a sleep debt, and you can't repay it. It's lost. And toxins build up in your brain. When you go to sleep, it's like the garbage truck comes in and just, takes away all the waste from the metabolic activity that's been happening during your wakeful states. If you don't get enough sleep, there's incomplete removal. And that stuff poses a hazard to your health and well-being. It's science, guys. Just telling you. And safe sleep practices. So creating those strategies, those sleep hygiene rituals and stuff. And then safe sleep practice. And of course, we had to say safe sleep because of back to sleep for the babies, because that's the population. But what does safe sleep look like for families? And what does safe sleep look like for clinicians? And having the open discussions, lifting the taboo off of all of this stuff. These are core human needs. I know the disease is important, but the disease is one part of this whole person who needs care. Pain and stress, I'm just going to say a word. This pisses me off. Okay, I'm just going to say it. That it is 2021 and babies still experience unnecessary procedural pain because we fail to pre-medicate for routine procedures that are painful. Did you know that anytime you put a sharp object into human flesh, it elicits a nociceptive response? That's a pain response. And that we know in the science, from the literature, that repeated painful experiences that are unmanaged or undermanaged change the brain in not good ways, decreases brain volume, decreases functional capability, and leads to neurodevelopmental compromise. We know this, and yet we still do it. And say things like, well, they didn't flinch. It's okay that they didn't flinch. They still had pain. It doesn't matter. They probably didn't flinch because they dissociated from the experience, right? But you wouldn't know this if you didn't understand the science of trauma, right? And a lot of you guys, I kind of went on about that this morning. So first, it's about prevention. We ordered tons of tests. Would you agree? In healthcare, we ordered tons. We're test freaks, right? I mean, no disrespect for speechy people, but the test that comes up for me when I think of you guys is the swallow, right? The fluoroscopy and all those kinds of things, right? I'm not saying that it's not necessary. I just don't know how frequently they are necessary. When we understand, and you guys, you're the experts, all right? I'm just saying, okay? Because I know that from a medical perspective, from a nurse practitioner perspective, I used to love to order labs because it's really scary to not know what's going on with the patient. And I used to pray that I would figure out what was wrong with the patient once I got the lab profile, right? It would help me answer anything because I didn't feel confident in my own ability to make a clinical judgment. I was afraid I'd miss something. And I expected that the test is going to reassure me. But it's just a number. And when I don't believe in my clinical skills, my clinical acumen, my assessment skills, why am I there? I'm just some monkey ordering tests and interpreting data, but I'm not really examining you. I'm not really going off of my gut and what you're telling me in that moment. Yes, sometimes tests are necessary, but the number one way to stop unmanaged and undermanaged pain is to stop unnecessary testing. Every Monday and Thursday, you get labs. Why? Because it's Monday or Thursday. And you're in this room, and we do labs on Monday and Thursday. So I mean, and we get hardwired into these rituals, right? And I remember, so many babies would say, what's going on? Well, he's not eating, so we need to do a swallow. Really? He's 32 weeks. He's got a dysmature, developmental profile. I'm outside my comfort zone here, guys. But you know what I'm saying, right? I mean, do we really need to do... I'm not saying that the test is not necessary, but is it necessary today? Maybe, we can use our understanding of the developmental dysmaturity of these people, maybe, all right? I'm just saying maybe, and use that to inform us and stand in our expertise. I know that this person really shouldn't be coordinating suck, swallow, and breathe, because mostly they're trying to breathe. So probably not a good time, just kind of using those examples, and that's the number one way you can stop unmanaged pain. But when you know you need to do something, assessing, managing, and reassessing. That's where we fall off the truck as a nurse, from a nursing perspective, is the reassessment. We say, I'm going to do this painful procedure. I gave him some sucrose or mother's milk or whatever the heck I gave him. That's what we use in the NICU. There are other strategies, for other patient populations, but non-pharm strategies. And then I forget. And then the person, whatever it is I gave them is worn off, and I'm still doing my procedure because I'm not paying attention. I'm not present. I'm not connected with that person, right? So that's what these are. These really are those guideposts, best practices to reduce the trauma experience of these individuals and really provide excellence in care, excellence in service. And then the final piece is really about family and social networks, that how those are integral in being efficacious for non-pharmacological strategies from a NICU perspective. And I think I shared, again, it was a newborn experience, having an audiology exam while the baby was breastfeeding. But we know that will keep the baby calm and comfortable. I'll just tell you a really quick story. Let me go look at the clock real quick. So, my youngest daughter, her little son just turned 3 yesterday. But she had the baby when she was living in Virginia. I live in Massachusetts. And so the plan was I would fly down when she went into labor. Of course, she goes into labor when we're at my son's wedding, her brother's wedding. But whatever. So I get a flight, I go to Virginia, and I can be mean as a hornet, just to let you know, okay? I go big psycho mama bear, you start messing with my kids. So I'm there, and I'm trying to be cool. She has the baby, so happy, blah, blah, blah. And we start telling the nurse, because she wants to do, I forget, was the Hep B vaccine or whatever the heck she wanted to do. She wanted to do some jab. And of course, my daughter's lived with me all my life, right? So she knows basically what it is to be a NICU nurse, right? She says, I know that I can hold my baby and I can breastfeed my baby while you jab that into his thigh. And I want that to go down. And the nurse was like, no, that's not what we do. And I was in the room. And so I had a few words with her. Now, not disrespectfully. I started out very nice because I understand. This is scary. You've never done this before. I understand. So I, kind of talked her through it, and she was listening. I don't know if she was buying it. She said, well, let me think about it. So I thought, I'll be respectful and let her think about it, right? It's her job, and stuff like that. I was trying to be cool. Well, you know what that little chick did? She took my grandson down the nursery, and she stabbed him. And she brought him back, screaming hysterically. And then she went on to bathe him like he was a Thanksgiving turkey. I'd never seen anything like it. And these are the things, right? We get caught up in these rituals, and it's our routine, and we feel like we can't deviate. We trap ourselves in these stupid practices that we think they serve us, right? I mean, I don't know if she was enjoying herself, but, it wasn't any more efficient than maybe if you let my daughter, who probably should learn how to bathe her child, how to do it. So so I digressed a little bit, but I was trying to highlight, family and the importance of us really embracing that. Like the audiologist that my friend worked with, when my friend first said, I know the baby's supposed to be asleep, but she's not asleep, but she will chill if I nurse her and you can do your hearing exam. And the audiologist, apparently, I wasn't there, but this is what my friend told me, looked a little freaked out about it. Like, we don't really do that. But she said, all right, I'll try it. And it worked. And she was so excited. So she felt uncomfortable, which is absolutely normal. But then she saw, no harm, no foul. What's the worst thing that can happen? You put the baby in the cribby and you do it, hopefully. That's the worst that could happen. Then do it. So it's really about connecting with our humanness, right? Reconnecting with our humanness. Getting out of that space where we are our own worst enemy, and when we do that, we are at our lowest level of service to other. The ADLs bit, I kind of talked to you about this already. Posture and play, like how fun is that? Really helping people understand. Remember, I showed this image for the morning session, and it was a little baby who was getting bottle fed, and this poor little soul was propped on the warming table, being held by his neck. And he was just like sloped, and you couldn't really see him all, but you knew what was going on. His butt was like on the bed. The nurse was just holding him by the neck. His shoulders were slumped down. His eyebrows were trying to reach his hairline. And he was like this, and the bottle is in his mouth. He had like no tone. Nothing was going on. And everybody was asked to critique it. And again, thinking about the role of posture in normal physiologic function. Let's do a quick little activity. all right? I haven't done this one in forever. So everyone stand up real quick. And this will just kind of get some blood circulating too, okay? Now just stand in a normal alignment. No fuss, no muss. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And then blow it out, okay? And now I want you to swallow your spit. Just swallow your spit. Right? Everybody good? You all swallow your spit? Now I want you to just kind of like push your shoulders back a little bit. Tip your head back a little bit. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And pay attention to how it feels. And now swallow your spit. Okay, come back to neutral. Did you notice a difference? Okay, cool. All right, good. It works. Okay, go ahead and sit down. But a lot of times we don't think about that, right? We don't think about how posture plays a role in just little things. And so, again, this is just reminding people about these best practice strategies. Eating and nourishment. I've really moved away from talking about feeding because feeding is something that you do to somebody. Eating really begs you to take a step back and think, I'm creating an experience here. And actually, we're really trying to talk about meal times, which blows the roof off of a lot of my colleagues, my nursing colleagues, when we talk about creating nourishing and nurturing meal times in the NICU. They're like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about feeding the baby? I'm like, no, we're not going to be feeding the baby. We're going to create a mealtime experience for them. It shifts it, right? Because eating is something different. And it's important because we know the long-term outcomes. So that's where all this stuff comes from. Hygiene, it's not about scrubbing the dirt off of a baby. It's about creating an experience that optimizes their health and wellness, stabilizes their microbiome, ensures optimal skin integrity. And I know that's more of a nursing thing than a speech thing, but just to understand that, is really important. And then the final one here is used to be families, but what we've discovered is, and I don't know if this is an outpatient thing, but that families tend to be siloed out. Like there's the patient, there's us, and then there's them. But that's not the way it really should work, right? Because the patient is in co-regulation with them, right? I mean, the patient depends on them for everything. So we need to bring them into the fold. They need to be part of the team, whether it's inpatient or outpatient, part of the team to understand, to be empowered, to, be part of what's going on. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that everybody's healthy and well, not wealthy, but healthy and well. So assessing and supporting emotional well-being is a priority for the patient, the family, and for us. Strategies to cultivate self-efficacy. What's self-efficacy? It's that I got this feeling. When I feel self-efficacious, I've got it. It's like a little bit more robust than confidence and competence. Self-efficacy, I got it. And then communication. And so when I share these core measures, a lot of my nursing colleagues go, oh, great, so this is what I do to be trauma-informed. And I get a little bit cautious because at the beginning, that's what I thought. I thought you just do these things and you'll be trauma-informed. But the being trauma-informed is shifting. We do so much already. These are things that we really kind of already do. The invitation is to do them with presence, to do them with compassion. It's to be with the patient as you support their postural alignment. It's not to like a gummy bear, or what do you call it? Remember those, oh fudge, I'm dating myself, but Gumby, that was it, that's what I was thinking of. These like bendable, posable things, that's not what postural alignment is. Imagine if you're lying in the bed and somebody comes in and goes, I need to make sure you're in postural alignment. I pull your legs down and I tip you over this way and I do something like that. And you're like, are you kidding me? Am I supposed to be comfy now because you say this is postural alignment? It's about, supporting comfort, and it's not about the doing to. So this is not a checklist. These are guidelines, and these are best practices in meeting those human needs. But the secret sauce is really about how you show up. Do I have all of the core measures? Okay, great. So on this slide, that outer ring, those are the attributes. Those are the attributes of becoming a trauma-informed professional. When we first developed, in the course of this work of recognizing the importance of trauma-informed care, you guys all doing all right? Okay, good. I got to pull together an amazing group of interdisciplinary, international, neonatal, experts, because, that's my default setting, right? And said, okay, look, we get that there's the science to support the importance of trauma-informed care, but I'm struggling to get it mainstream, to help people really understand the importance of this. As a bit of a sidebar, I got to do this really interesting qualitative study with 2 colleagues of mine, and we were, what do you call it, focus groups. We did focus groups with the NICU clinicians to find out what they thought about this idea of trauma and trauma-informed care. And it was really revealing that it bothered them a lot. They didn't like the word trauma. It was too scary. And was I trying to say that they were traumatizing the patients? And of course, I was like, well, not coming out of the chute, but, once you hear about this, yes, because, once you read the research and you still are doing it, it's not like you can unhear this. If you hear it, you got to do something about it. But, it was kind of like, I'm not trying to say that you're traumatizing the patient. I'm trying to say that the patient's experience is traumatic. I'm not even talking about you. You could add to it, but I'm not even talking about that right now. I'm just saying, can you accept that this is a traumatic experience? And they really, they could see it, but there was so much profound discomfiture with acknowledging it. And lots of paternalistic stuff came up about how, we don't want to scare the parents. We don't want to use that word, which I do believe came from a place of concern. But the thing of it is it's kind of like that, is it Shakespeare? A rose by any other name would still smell as sweet. You can call it whatever you want, but it's still traumatizing to the family. And you're withholding the language that will help them recognize what their experience is, and then seek appropriate support and help as necessary. So when we don't call it trauma, we don't treat it as trauma. The parents don't know what to do, and they think they're crazy because they're freaking out because it's trauma. So can you see that's it? So it's really been interesting, as we were talking as a faculty group to try and figure out, how do we get people then on board? How do we get people to understand and step outside this perception and call it what it is? So we first thought, well, let's do a certification. And I didn't know the difference. I didn't know the difference between certification and certificate programs. I just said, people love alphabet soup. Let's do this. They'll want to come. Everybody wants to add extra letters after their name. I do. And then they'll know, and everything will be good. But what we discovered is that, as I mentioned earlier, right, just because you know better doesn't necessarily, I know people say that, when you know better, you do better. Sometimes. Knowledge is power, but it's mostly potential power. Right? Because and it's not because, my nursing colleagues are jerks or anything like that, but the knowledge that I have, when I want to implement that, I have to come up against the culture. And the culture can be pretty scary. The culture can be bullying. The culture can be, very patriarchal, hierarchical, can be all of these things that constrains me in a way that I don't feel like I can operationalize it. So we talked about that as well, and we said, all right, what we're going to do then is let's identify what are the competencies, which we call attributes before, but once you become a trauma-informed professional, we feel that they're competencies. What are the competencies of being a trauma-informed professional? So right off the bat, the top one on there, you'll see knowledgeable. But what we decided, because we're crazy people, we're thorough people. Let's not say crazy. We're thorough people. I'm going to take you around the block. We said, yeah, empirical knowledge is really important, but there are so many other ways of knowing. And so we highlighted all of these. So when you go through the course, and it's a self-paced course, it's a personal course, you know. We do have group classes, but it's what we discovered is the power of reflection. And I think that this is big in rehab, I think, you know, reflective practice. We talk about it in nursing, but we're not so good at practicing it. But that's where the wisdom comes, right? That's where the self-discovery comes from, in that reflection. So people go through all of these, in the module for knowledgeable, they go through this little journey to uncover their relationship and understanding of all of these subcategories of knowledgeable. That's, you know, the first attribute. Then we move into talking about healing intention. What are the elements? And the reason why we're doing this is because we realize you cannot give what you do not have. If you are empty, if you don't have a molecule of compassion left in you, which we know many of our colleagues don't, right? COVID has sucked the life out of many of our colleagues, and maybe many of you guys as well. You can't give. You know, you just become this robot, this automated, and that's not who you're called to be. That's not who we want to be. And so it's about, you know, kind of digging into that and practicing these things to cultivate that, that sense of wholeness from a metaphysical, from an internal, personal, socio-emotional perspective, but then also then moving on to that next module of looking at personal wholeness, the physicality of who you are, right? That piece of wellness as well. So when I obsess about the wholeness of the patient, I have to role model my commitment to that by caring for myself in that same way. Does that make sense? So these are just like, and so those first three, right? Knowledgeable, healing intention, and personal wholeness become the foundation for you to then start to branch out and feel empowered and courageous, right? Because you have to be courageous. Remember when I was just saying about knowledge is potential power? To translate it into actual power, you have to have courage. And so these are all the ways, we call them all ways of braving. Identifying your noble purpose, and then going scared. What does it mean to be courageous? It doesn't mean not ever being scared. It's doing the right thing in spite of being scared. And being persistent, having that level of commitment. And that's why that exercise, that purpose exercise, that becomes that, like, you know, engine, if you will, you know, that helps you move on because you're committed to this noble purpose. Having the courage, because, you know, this work requires advocacy. And these are the components we've identified as being an advocate. Obviously, having a knowledgeable impact, right? You remember when I told you the story about the doctor whispering in there going, you don't want people to think that you're that marshmallow, soft, fluffy person. And really inside me, I'm thinking, why is it mutually exclusive? I've written 3 books. I've written chapters, and I don't say this braggy. I'm just saying, like, do you mean if I show my heart in my gooey center, somehow all of that scholarship is negated? Like, really? Right? That sounds silly. But again, it's been our culture, at least in inpatient critical care, to look at the world that way, and we have to break down that silo. Because the best part of me isn't here. I like up here. The best part of me is right here. Because this is the part that will never give up. Ooh, I almost made myself cry. Excuse me. Blah! Wasn't expecting that to come up. So you have to know, right? You have to have knowledge, you know, so that people will listen to you and be respectful and have patience and grace, you know, all of those things. Be trauma-informed. Because it is traumatic to some people to change the paradigm. We've been doing it this way for 30 years. That's what I hear in the NICU. I'm like, don't you think it's time to change then? 30 years is a long time to be doing it this way. And inspiring excellence. Letting go. I can really be super masculine. And I was actually a little bit frustrated when you shared your clinical challenge this morning. And I was feeling so compelled to fix it. And it was bothering me inside, like, because I couldn't fix it. But that's not my job. My job is not to fix it. My job is to inspire excellence in others. What we discover, and what I've discovered, going through this journey myself and watching others go through this journey, all of the answers. and this might, I hope you believe me, they're right in there. We all have all of the answers. We just don't give ourselves the time, the grace, and the patience to listen to it, to know what is our inner wisdom telling us. That's our intuition, informed by all the smarts that we have up there. Being a role model and a mentor, and I think it was wicked cool, and I don't know if there are any students left in here, but I think it's wicked cool that you've had students here, because it really, it speaks to the organization to mentor, these aspiring speech-language pathologists, aspiring audiologists into the profession so that they feel there's a community resource for them, and you can show them the way. This is the direction that we're going. This is what excellence looks like, in our practice. But in order to do that in a way that really hits the mark, it's humility and empathy. That's what does it. If I'm the role model, like I think about preceptors. Let me look at my time. I think of preceptors in nursing. And tell me how this works with you guys, okay? So I want it to resonate. But when we bring on new nurses, even if they've had experience, they go through the classes, right? We have orientation classes. Then they get assigned a preceptor. And everything can change in a moment. They can get educated. They can get their little lectures on developmental care, trauma-informed care, if they're really, there. That would be wicked awesome. But then when they get tacked onto the preceptor, it's however the preceptor plays the game. And if they don't believe in developmental care, or they don't believe in trauma, or they have their way of doing it because they've been doing it that way for 30 years, that's what that novice is going to be exposed to. And that's one of the biggest things that can just makes me cuckoo house. I don't know about you guys. And so, when we come at this work, it's two-pronged. It's probably more than two, but right now I'm just thinking of two. It's the legacy folks, right, the people that have been there, and getting them on board, and then really crafting an onboarding process that can funnel in and be well received by the legacy people. Because if you just do it on this end, these guys, they want to survive. And this is a horrible thing, but I'm sure it won't surprise you. Nurses eat their young. It's awful. I don't know why. I don't understand it. There are papers. This is crazy, but people have researched this. Nurses eat their young. And so I might come on all fresh-faced and excited, and I want to do this work, and then I get hooked up with Barbara, and Barbara is a bee sting, Barbara's one of those people that don't buck her. Just go along, and then if you want to fit in because she's the queen bee in the culture, right? You guys have met these people, right? They're not just in nursing. I think there's a lot of them in nursing, but they're not just in nursing. Just speaking the truth. And they become role models, right? And so these are the barriers that keep that knowledge potential knowledge and not, operationalized knowledge. And we have to call it what it is. We have to recognize it so that we can change it. The scholarly piece, and this sometimes when people come into the course, they get all weirded out like, oh my God, wait a minute, no, I can't do research, it's like, chill. Being scholarly is about sharing knowledge. And you can share knowledge in so many different ways. Yes, you can do randomized controlled trials and go nuts. You can write books. It's all good. You can also do a lunch and learn and teach somebody some small element around toxic stress and the biology of it. So scholarly is in all different ways, and we always should be challenging ourselves. And it's about mindful language. I think I spoke about that before, the importance of using the right words to describe the situation. Not using the language that makes us feel better about it, because we don't really want to say, somebody's going to die. We just say, we're redirecting care. That's what we say, because it makes us feel better, because it hurts our hearts to say that we have to withdraw life support. So we say we're redirecting care to comfort care. And I understand that. But we have to, and when I'm saying this, I'm not saying we have to be cold and heartless, but we have to understand the power of the language and using language correctly. That's being scholarly. It's also being a role model and an advocate and being courageous. Making a powerful impression by sharing your findings, by sharing the knowledge. And having confidence to do that. In this work, this is a big part of the work, right? I feel like You guys are really, I feel so safe here, I could just cry. But this work feels like a ministry. I mean, I hope that doesn't sound too out there, but that's what my purpose has done to me. And I want everyone in this room to feel that way. I want you to feel on fire for the mission that you're here to do in this world. Or come and join mine, it's always good. Because with all of these elements, hopefully then people transition to feeling a little more confident, right? Because it's a journey, right? Becoming a leader for change. I love that word, becoming. Because it's aspirational. I'm never done. I really thought when I first it's been 8 years, right? It's been 8 years since I made this discovery to right now, maybe moving on to 9, but 8 years, and I'm not done. I'm always learning more. I am always becoming more trauma-informed, more of a leader in different ways. And that's what it should be. We're always growing and changing and evolving. You're never done. If you're done, you die. Right? That's what being done is. And so being a leader for change, we feel very strongly it revolves around these headings: kindness, connection, and compassion. It's the GUI center that makes a good leader. Obviously, it's built on all of those other attributes, right? That you're knowledgeable, that you're compassionate, that you're whole, that you're strong, that you're courageous. And it takes courage. And we know this from Brené. The most courageous thing you can do is what? Be vulnerable. Yes, exactly. And that's what a good leader does. A good leader leads. I'm not saying a good leader sits there and just, No. A good leader leads and knows the power of kindness, knows the power of connection, knows the power of compassion, right? And so those are the foundations of the program, of the Trauma-Informed Professional Certificate Program. All of these modules that I shared with you, it's all self-paced online modules. We do have requirements to attend a 3-hour master class. Everything's Zoom, right? Virtual. And then we have these mastermind sessions when all of the learners come together. And it's been amazing, but let me just share with you. We launched the program in November of 2020. And we have almost 200 people that have enrolled. I think it's about 65 graduates. And they're from, I think it's 13 different countries. Right? Right? And that was unexpected. But again, it reinforces my understanding of this unitary principle. That this shared, when I talk to my colleagues in Belgium and Germany, we just had a graduate from Japan. I didn't even know that they knew I was alive. In Japan, talk about this, same challenges. Absolute same challenges. We struggle with staffing. We struggle with respect. We struggle with parents coming in. We struggle with pain management. We struggle with all of these things. They might use different equipment. They might have, slightly different nuances to their approaches. But the core human challenges are the same. And that's what unites us. And in unity, strength in numbers, right? And that's how we transform the heart and soul of healthcare. What trauma-informed care is about, and I love this picture, it's about being the buffer. Being the buffer for the physical challenges, the emotional challenges, even the spiritual challenges that babies, families, and clinicians, our colleagues in crisis, experience on a day-to-day level. And this, I hope it came through. I hope you can see it, but this is from Helen Keller, because I do hear a lot of people go, yeah, but I'm just one person. What can I do? Everything. Look at Mother Teresa. You can do everything. Helen Keller, she writes, I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. Right? Yes! I mean, that's just so wicked powerful. And so we're coming down to the closure, and we're going to do a little exercise. But before I do this, I'm going to just ask if you have any questions or comments about the work, and then we'll do a quick little Lego activity. I hope you guys like Legos. But any questions, any thoughts, any reflections that you want to share or ask? Who said that? Oh, God bless you. Powerful. Thank you so very much for saying that. You know, I mean, yeah, thank you. I'm so really honored for this opportunity. So let's get right to the Legos then, okay? Now this is it. This is your last activity, your last thing to do, and it's really important. And I apologize that I didn't have it, but I'm going to invite the folks that don't have Legos. Do you mind joining some tables that do have Legos? What I want you to do, I do this a lot when I work with folks. I ask them, what was your greatest insight? What was your greatest insight? Don't answer the question, because I want you to create your greatest insight in the shape of a sculpture, a Lego sculpture. Now, you're gonna laugh about this experience, but it's gonna be really powerful. You're gonna love it, I promise you. And yep, just go crazy, share, divide them up. It's all good. Here, come on over here if you'd like to share with the table. Don't let your head get in your way. All right? Don't let your head, just start touching the Legos. Throw them on the table. Share. Throw them on the table. Just start touching them and just start putting them together. And what will happen, this is really cool, because I've done this activity before. You're not my guinea pigs. What you'll find is that you'll just start building something, and words will start taking shape in your head about what your greatest insight is and how it can be reflected in a little sculpture. I'm going to give you 7 minutes, because that's a lucky number, 7. 7 minutes. If you don't have enough Legos, jump on another table, because some folks have tons. You want to have at least one person in your sculpture, because we're humans, and we take care of people. So I want to see a person in there. If you don't have enough people, sing out, raise your hand, and I'll find people on another table and share the people. All right? Just go have at it. Because you're going to tell the story of your sculpture when you're done. So just mentally prepare. You can raise your hand if you have any questions, but it looks like you guys are all over it. All right. This is super intriguing. I am drawn to your sculpture. You guys, y'all doing good? I'm gonna come over here to this sculpture. I love it. Okay, I'm going to take this off, and I want you to share with folks what this sculpture represents with regard to your greatest insight, or whatever it represents.
Yes. So I guess the foundation, the bottom piece is a real, I don't know if I can hold it up for people to see. It's a real big piece, and that's sort of like the foundation, your past experiences, your childhood, the environment you grew up in, and from there, and possibly including, whatever your own trauma has been, and from there you kind of build on it with and work through it into various knowledge and skills, and from there you refine those into your passion, and then that is what sort of you find to stand on. So he's sort of standing on the narrow part. And then when you have your passion and you're speaking out your passion, that's the bridge that can connect to somebody else's foundation.
Are you kidding me? That is so wicked awesome. Can I take a picture of this?
Sure.
That is so awesome. Oh my heavens.
Bye.
awesome. Thank you so very much. Everybody clap, come on. That was freaking awesome, right? What do you think?
I know, yeah, well, I don't know if I could top that. I just have a very tiny basic one, but
Beautiful.
well, I'm more imaginative than literal, so, when I looked at it, I imagined it was a horse with two heads. And my insight was, well, I'm just a student, so I'm still learning a lot. But I really have attached to the idea of treating the person as a whole, and a lot of what you talked about. And but one of my insights was when you talked about maybe applying some of that to the clinician yourself.
Yes.
So I wasn't really thinking of that yet, So it's a two-headed treatment, right? One,
I love that.
the same thing that for the patient, yeah.
I love that. I'm going to take a picture.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're so courageous, huh? Are all of you guys students? Yes, good. Okay, then let's get the students going here. Here you go. Wow, look at this. You know what I'll do, Shelby? I'll share all these pictures with you, okay? There's multiple people going.
Yeah, my execution was not quite what I wanted it to be, but I got the balance, and kind of my main idea was just people relying on other people and building off of one another, and I think that was one of my main, I was only here for the afternoon, but
Oh, good. I love
one of my
that.
takeaways for professional practice is just built on kindness.
Leaning
and,
on each other.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
helping
love
other
it.
people.
Woo! All right, huh? I'm going to get the dark side of the room over here, and then I'll come back over. Hey, guys. How's it going? Who'd like to share? Shaking their head. No, go away. Go.
I'll share mine.
All right, come on. Here we go.
So mine is just a free form, and I'm not done. But it
She'll be
also
staying after.
exactly, yeah. And it also ties into this holistic person idea where we just are sort of thrown together, and that is beautiful. And we work with what we got, and we uncover it as we go, and we grab people and hold them tight along the way. And even the pieces that are left at the end that don't necessarily connect anywhere are going to connect at some point.
You're going to make them fit.
Yep, we're going to
Let
do
me
it.
take a picture. Yay, that's awesome. Beautiful, beautiful. How about you guys? Are you okay? You want to share?
Oh,
You can say no. I'll.
I think she wants to share.
Excellent. Nice buck pass there.
Okay, so this is a person, maybe me, but centered, connecting to the planet, but then trying to beam out as much light and love as possible. That's what those little Lego things are. And then this is connecting to someone else, although they're in a different space.
Yeah.
I had this heck of a time connecting this window. But anyway, and so just making that connection. And I wanted to have a bridge between the two, but I can't figure out how to do that
I
with
can
Legos.
see it though. I can visualize it. It really,
Yeah.
it's awesome. Oh my gosh, you guys. We have to put a collage together of all of these things. Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah. Okay, how about who here would love to share? Oh, here she goes. There you go.
So mine's pretty simple, but it's a guy, and he's breaking down the door to spread the word of trauma-informed care to everybody. Yay, advocacy.
Woo! All right, you guys. Oh my heavens. Fantastic. What do we think here?
Hers is more elaborate than
It's size does not, it's not about size. Not about size.
I'm not touching that one, but okay. My guy's a little witch on a hoverboard. but has anybody been on a hoverboard? It's like you really have to let yourself be vulnerable, and that's, I think, one of the important things we learned. But also have, behind the scenes, we have all these supports, so
Clever.
building your supports to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I honestly just found the witch hat, but I still love it because The Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite movies of all time. And just because someone may look scary on the outside, sometimes they're a good witch. and they have a lot of power and channel that.
I love it. Thank you so very much. Let's see, I'm going to look at the time because I also want to be respectful. You guys are rock stars. Let me just grab one more. Anybody? Here we go.
Oh, it's me. Okay, well, yeah, mine is this red guy looked really angry to me. And so I thought that he probably looked like the old model of medical care and or what we still operate under. And then this little person over here, I think is the patient. And his hands were up when I pulled him out of the bag, and I was like, yeah, that seems about right. And then I put the cowboy in the middle because I was anticipating myself being the good guy. And so I was just going to be a cowboy. But then I also put him on, and he had a hard time balancing there, and I thought, well, that's actually appropriate because we're trying to find that balance between the clinical model that we know and now this new trauma-informed care that we need to start implementing. So.
Are you kidding me? I love that. That is so wicked awesome. I grabbed the picture while it was in midair. Thank you so very much. I'm so sorry I can't get to everybody's, but if you feel inclined, take a picture. I'll give my email address, and if you wouldn't mind like sharing them maybe with Shelby or with Bridget, and then you can share them with me, and I'll share what I have with you guys. Before we wrap up real quickly, how was that activity? You were okay about it? Awesome, awesome, awesome. I think no matter what the situation is, everything always calls for play. So here we are. This is our last slide here. And I don't know about you guys, but I recently learned that the dandelion is a symbol for healing. And I really liked that symbol. And this is all of you guys, right? All of the little wispies. I don't know what you call them. I'm not a farmer or anything, but, you know, those little elements of the dandelion just going out now and spreading the word, being part of the movement, right? Woohoo! All right. Thank you guys so very much. You've been absolutely amazing. I feel so honored. Thank you, you guys. Holy moly, I needed this, man. This is so amazing. Thank you very much.